Hello, everyone, and welcome to this transactional case study at the Inkjet Virtual Summit. We are Solimar Systems, and this is optimizing PDF for print and inkjets and everything in between. So we're going to share some great details with you. And during this session, you have myself, Jonathan Malone McGrew, the Senior Director of Engagement at Solimar. We also have Marianne Rowan, our Chief Experience Officer, and our special guest, Pat McGrew from McGrew Group, renowned industry analyst and workflow expert. And with that, we're going to jump right in because we have a lot to share with you today about PDFs and optimizing for inkjets and beyond. So Pat, why don't you take it away?
Great, Jonathan. Thank you. Thank you also, Marianne, for inviting me. Look, in the world of PDF, what we know is that many PDFs lack pep. Yours may lack pep. And the reason that they lack pep is because they have too many layers, they have too much overhead, they may be the result of transform processes, they may have been built for totally different purposes than for print. So we know that these PDFs become bloated, they've had too much to eat, they feel a little, sluggish. What happens is they get to the DFE and the RIP, and sometimes they become a major bottleneck. And that's what we mean when we say that they lack pep. And I think that one of the things most people forget is that most PDFs come as a conglomeration. They've been assembled from a lot of different pieces. And whether it's a trans-promo piece, a transaction piece, a direct mail piece, or a catalog piece, there may be a lot of different files and a lot of different hands. What you might find is that when you look across all the PDFs that you have in your environment, they're big. You might find that when you take a real hard look at them, that the PDF, if you analyze it, isn't very well constructed. And in fact, it's so big that you almost despair that anything can be done to help it. Let me tell you that it is possible to optimize PDF. So some of you know other products out there that optimize anything. There are a lot of things that can optimize PDF. The trick with optimizing PDF, though, is not just kind of optimizing, it's actually making it better and making it more rippable so that your printers will perform at the rate of speed that a high-speed industrial inkjet needs to perform. And the other thing is so that your archives won't be bloated with overly large PDFs that just don't need to be that way. One of the things that you find is that vendors are always happy to tell you how great their product is, but it's really important to know if there's been independent testing. And one of the roles that I've played here is that I've been able to link my friends at the Keypoint Intelligence UK lab with my friends at Solimar. And it turned out that both of them had an interesting need. Solimar wanted to know what the real benefit of ReadyPDF was, and the UK lab for Keypoint Intelligence needed something that would show how different DFEs work, because they were doing testing for some of their vendor clients. So we combined resources and we created a test bed. And test bed is transactional, trans-promo, direct mail, and a catalog. And out of that, what we tried to understand is what happens when you run this raw, oddly assembled PDF file to the DFE, and then what happens when you run it through ReadyPDF and you take that same content and you put it through. So what we learned is we could get some optimization. We could get files that were smaller. We found that not only were they smaller, but they were smaller in the right places. In the trans-promo file, which is a file that, is basically a bunch of transaction detail with some nice marketing images on it. One of the things that we found is that the file got 7 times smaller when we ran it through ReadyPDF. So why is that important? Well, first of all, going from 500 million bytes to 75 million bytes is a major change in the bandwidth in getting the file from the server to the DFE, so that's one. 2, we also found that a lot of the different segments of the PDF got smaller, which means the RIP didn't have to work as hard. So how do you measure that? Well, what the KPI UK folks did is they decided that the measurement they would use is the time to the first print. So from the time they let that file loose at the DFE to the time the first print appeared, what happened? And what happened in reality was that the time for the first print to appear was significantly reduced. And you would expect that because the file is smaller, the overhead is smaller, so the RIP wasn't working as hard. So it's really cool when it happens for trans promo. A lot of us print that, but what happens when you take a really common kind of file, like a catalog file, right? So many of you I know are commercial printers. You're investigating Inkjet for the first time, perhaps, or maybe you've been printing your high-end catalog work on toner printers, and you're looking at Inkjet. All of these things are good things to do, by the way. Inkjet quality is amazing. The thing is, the RIP has to work hard when you send a typical catalog file to it. Most catalogs are assemblies of a lot of different pages created by a lot of different designers using different kinds of transactional or creative processes. They may be assembled from all sorts of different environments. So let's think about that for a second. What happens when you take a typical file that might have bitmap pages, InDesign pages, Microsoft Publisher pages, heck, Microsoft Word pages, all assembled together into a catalog? Well, you wind up with kind of a mess in the PDF. And that's what we had here. This catalog file was an office supply catalog that had been assembled from a lot of different sources, and it was massive. So in just one copy of this book was 13 million bytes. We got it down to 1 million running it through ReadyPDF. The time to the first print was significantly reduced. The overhead, everything about this file was reduced. It was 14 times smaller. So imagine when you're creating these personalized catalogs where you really have to rip every copy of it because they are personalized, what that does. It reduces your storage, it reduces your transmission time. So I think that's a brilliant story.
Yeah, and I think, just to sort of pop in a comment in here is that, a couple slides ago, we posed the question, why optimize, why and how? And I think people have gotten complacent where they get these print-ready PDF files that have been assembled like this, whether they're transactional or not, and they think they have to live with them because they don't want to go back to the customer or they don't want to go back to the designer. And you'll probably talk a little bit more about the differences between designer mentality and operator mentality. But this is a technology that's available today that can help and won't only help in one area, will help in multi areas, as we're showing here. And I think that is why that vendor neutral testing is so important to prove the point, right?
Yeah, I think some of the most exciting things that we're doing as we're watching some of these tests happen, I can't wait for the point where we can test with wide format, because I think that we'll see a lot of value there as well. I think that you're going to find that the more we grow as an industry, the more graphically rich we become in our transactional communications, our direct mail communications, and the more digital we become in the printing of our catalog type communications. This optimization is going to be critical to being able to get work through in any kind of reasonable way. So Jonathan, run to the next slide for me. And one of the things we wanted to make sure everybody understands, it's the deep dark secret of our industry is that designers design based on what they want, what they're told to do by their clients, and by what they've been taught to do in school and by what they've learned along the way, but they are rarely designing for these digital devices. There are all of these things that are going to impact the rip speed, right? Because the heavier that PDF file is, the longer it takes to rip. It's just a fact of life. And so if we can smooth that if we can lift some of the weight, if we can put the PDF on a diet, then all of a sudden we can get that rip to process more efficiently, and the time to the first print can be more efficient. But remember, it's not just printing, right? Because we use these PDFs for archive, we use them for e-delivery, we use them for all sorts of things. Every one of those channels has its own issues with heavyweight PDF. Go to the next slide for me. And one of the things we want you to realize is that you should be able to fearlessly produce millions of unique pages. You shouldn't have to be afraid to put a job in the queue to your DFE because you're afraid it's going to sit there and run for, 8, 9, 10 hours and shut the rest of your business down waiting for it to process.
Marianne, we've heard you had a story about someone had a term for that. They called the job something. I was trying to think of it.
Oh, this is the overnight job.
Overnight job,
when
yes.
You leave it in the office. When you leave at night and you hope that by the morning that you pray that all night long it got through and didn't crash in the middle of the night and the job is finished processing. So yes,
although sometimes you come in the morning and it's still running, right? I mean, that's also a possibility.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And you don't want that, right? And the other thing is that you find that some of these jobs, everybody knows they have problems, but instead of fixing the problem, they tinker with the RIP at press time. Right? They sit there and they start, getting in and moving dials and knobs and levers in the software of the RIP. And there's no consistency. They might print the job with one set of tinkers one day and a different set of tinkers another day. And, if the customer figures it out and isn't happy with the fact that they're different, then you got a whole other set of problems. The goal of optimizing.
A lot with ICC color profiles too. We see a lot of tinkering going on and different devices with different jobs. And again, I'd be the first one to forget or do the wrong one or forget to reset it back. So I would be a terrible operator.
Yeah, everybody needs a cheat sheet, right, to identify all the changes they've made. And the reality is that in the best circumstance, you want your ICC profiles to be locked. You want to have a solid device link profile that ensures the color the customer ordered is the color that you're delivering. And you as much as you love your operators and you trust your operators to keep a close eye on what you're producing, you don't really want them sitting there spending 10, 15, 20 minutes on every job making fine adjustments because the back end of the process hasn't actually been operated the way it should be and for most efficiency. I'm all about workflow. I believe that workflows should be efficient, as close to lights out automation as you can get, even though I recognize for some of you that's tougher. And I think that that's the thing that has me so excited about what I experienced myself with optimized files from ReadyPDF and the work that we were able to do in the KPI UK lab. So I think
that really rolls right into letting us share a couple key value differences, in ReadyPDF. So we've talked about how it helps, but I think now what we can do is really share with this group a couple of the key features that we want you to know about. There's many features in this product, but one of them, if I may indulge, this one is the embedded and consolidating of fonts that just isn't found in other products. We're able to help cache the resources. We're able to replace subsetted fonts, type 1, type 3. And this has proven to be significant to our customer base. So we have had customers test this in their environments, and Marianne will talk a little bit about that offer in a minute. But this has become key in things that have not been possible in making PDF better in the past for especially inkjet printers. But we postulate that this, as you saw with the catalog file, huge improvements in font handling through that catalog file. So this is a unique feature of ReadyPDF from Solimar. And then Marianne, would you like to share about the color tuning and going from RGB CMY to just black?
Absolutely. So a lot of files, especially coming out of like legacy, even composition tools. Those of you who have, again, some of those old tools coming off of mainframes and such, which are great, a lot of those output RGB, which is fine, except your inkjet wants CMYK. So we can easily make that transition from RGB to CMYK. And then also you can look at the gray that you might have and assure that that's actually gray and make that actually black with halftones. So instead of doing color processing, you can really lower costs by making everything into a black version of that. And so again, just some costing sides of the color that you can actually experience.
Yeah, we've seen that be very helpful to our customers' ink usage costs, which has been very important.
And we know from surveys that that is a huge concern among inkjet owners. And I'm not being unfair to inkjet vendors. They have to sell the ink, right? And they have to make money on the ink. We get it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't optimize to use the least amount of ink possible. And you will actually get smarter, crisper looking print the less ink you use in most cases.
And then this is another unique feature. Marianne, do you want to share how we help people in optimizing the images?
Sure. So a lot of the samples you saw from Pat were actually potentially started off as posters, right, Pat? Like 1200, 2400 DPI, which are beautiful,
or they were offset. Yeah.
Right. And then they come in, but they're not, again, optimized for inkjet processing or beyond. And so we can take those images, not only convert them to CMYK, also make them 600 DPI for most inkjet processors. And then if you want to do e-presentment or archiving, get them down to around 100 DPI. So save all that room, in the archive as well. So really we can take in one input, can make multiple outputs, and again, benefit both print and even e-delivery.
Right. We have a lot of great use cases around this from people who are using this today. So definitely.
Yeah, and remember, e-delivery these days, it's not just archive and web, it's your phone, right? And you want to be very sensitive. You don't want to be sending 600 DPI images to somebody's phone.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
And then we always have our eye on security at Solimar. It just, with all the transactional, this is the transactional case study. Something we added in as a base feature of ReadyPDF is the ability to obfuscate content. And you can kind of see an example of that right here on the graphic in the graphic in the middle of the screen. You have PDF that's been obfuscated to G and Z randomly. And so you can't get to the data. You can't understand the data once it's been obfuscated. This helps with proofs and analysis of files that are having issues, and helps keep the data secure. But we've also added in this unique capability of exclusions. And these exclusions mean that you can actually hold things out so that you can proof easier or find your way around the document. So you'll notice on this graphic that payment summary has not been obfuscated, and that's on purpose because we called it out along with SolarBank and along with the name of the company there. So this is just one of the many features in ReadyPDF that set it apart in the market. And because we do understand transactional as well as other industries, we added this in as a base feature for your benefits so that you can get more out of the product from day one. And really, I think that takes us to a great offer, Marianne, that we have here at Solimar.
Yes, absolutely. So we are happy to test files and even pass them over to Pat and her team to also help us sometimes. But we'll take in virtually any kind of file, AFP, IPDS, Metacode, PCL, so think about legacy applications as well. We'll convert them into PDF and then even further optimize them. So we can do that for you. We can also give you or set you up for a free evaluation system. So you can set up your own files, even obfuscate or jumble that information and have us help you. So again, less paperwork for us to have to go through with you. We all are trading back and forth clean files. And again, we can't identify who they're from because today in California, even a postcard for a car wash with my name on it is personal. And Jonathan, we've had lots of success with this. And you'll learn more. We have a virtual user conference coming up next month. We'll be hearing from customers, partners as well, on success cases, as well as all the new features that are in our product rollout. So you can pre-register today, and in a few weeks, you'll get more information on this conference that's coming up.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, especially if you aren't able to travel. This virtual conference will be great. And with that, that really takes us to the end of our transaction case study here at the Virtual Inkjet Summit this year. We really thank you for your time, and on behalf of Marianne, Pat, and myself, we hope you reach out to us, ping us to learn more, either from our contact details or during the conference through the interface. So we are here to meet with you and to help you with anything inkjet and workflow.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat and Jonathan.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.